What is going on, everyone? Welcome to a special episode of Grid Encore, coming to you live from the West Coast, halfway through the Portland-Sonoma West Coast swing. I'm Ben Schneider, joined as always by Brandon Crossan. Brandon, how are you doing?
Excellent, Ben. And I love this time of year when our Grid Network team is out there on the West Coast getting it done in Portland. And good to see you out there as well, along with Joe Samaniego. And yes, it indeed is a Motor Monday. We're going to keep this mug around for every Monday. No, we are not endorsed by Discovery Channel or the Discovery Networks, but my wife did find this from someone, so we're going to start using it in the show.
Yeah, it works perfectly with the scheduling of when the Encore show is. You're kicking your week off on a Monday here, and we're here to recap a lot of what you already know. Obviously, we're out all weekend with Joe Samaniego, who I see here in the chat. Good to see you, Joe, and John Bender, one of our newer regulars joining us here as well. Good to see you as well, John. We're going to recap the ARCA and Xfinity races from Portland. We obviously talked a lot about those all weekend on the Grid channel, so you can go check those out once you're done watching our show here tonight. We also had a truck race at Gateway, and INDY NXT joined the INDYCAR Series on the streets of Detroit, and anxious to get Brandon's thoughts on this new circuit. Now we have a couple of years under our belts here. I think a lot of the drivers were missing Belle Isle, and certainly a chaotic IndyCar race. INDY NXT, not as much controversy with how many cautions we saw all scattered throughout the race. But we'll get into all of that here in just a moment. First, as always, I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters on this weekend. In particular, your support is what helped allow me to come out to the West Coast and has for the last several years. So thank you, Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for your support. It means the world to us. It means the world to Joe, and it's what is helping us continue to build this motorsports media outlet up. And if you like what you see tonight or this afternoon, I say here is where 4 o'clock my time now on the West Coast. I'm used to the show being at 7 o'clock in the evenings, but whenever you're watching around the world, I know a lot of you probably tuning in from Australia, New Zealand as well, with SVG winning. If you like what you see here on this show, you can consider joining these fine folks for Patreon, or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee links in the description box below, or you can donate through YouTube Super Chats and Super Thanks features as well. And if you can't contribute financially, you can help us out just by following us on our social media platforms, especially right here on YouTube. Thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. We're well beyond that now with our coverage from this weekend. Here's for next 1,000 and beyond there. Now, of course, we have to start with the Xfinity Series race, and Shane van Gisbergen finally got the job done. He won an Xfinity Series race after winning the Cup race on the streets of Chicago last year. Not too often that you see that, somebody getting their Cup win before an Xfinity win, but SVG got the job done. I know he came close at Circuit of the Americas, was finally able to close the deal this weekend in Portland, but it was not as straightforward as you might think getting there. He got shuffled back on the restarts a couple of times. He had the incident, of course, with Sam Mayer at the very beginning of the race. Mayer ultimately worked his way back up through the field as well before getting shuffled back again at the end of the race. But it was SVG emerging through it all, overcoming a tire rub as well, all sorts of things to take the win. Now, in the post-race press conference, SVG and Chris Rice, the team president of Colleague Racing, both mentioned winning on an oval as the next goal for SVG heading forward now that he's locked into the playoffs for the rest of his 2024 season. I asked him, which ovals are you looking at that you might circle on your calendar that you think you might have the best chance at getting that job done? Here's what SVG had to say to answer my question. Are there any ovals in particular you're looking at coming up to the schedule that you think you might have a shot at taking a win?
The left-handed ones.
Fair enough.
Wow. Yep. That's definitely SVG right there. And good on you, Ben, for asking the tough questions. And I mean, with him, you're going to get your answer. There it is.
Yeah, well, I think it speaks very highly of his confidence here and how quickly he's picking these ovals up. Of course, he had a couple of very strong runs to start the year. I think third at Atlanta, sixth at Phoenix, and been a little bit of a struggle since then trying to get the cars up to speed. And that's another thing that Chris in particular talked about during that press conference. By the way, you can catch the full thing on the Grid YouTube channel. Peter Strada also posted the source audio footage. I know some people were saying in the comments that they couldn't hear the audio very well, and we apologize about that. They didn't turn the air vent off before the press conference, and we just had our webcam filming that. So if you want to try to work some magic and try to sync those two videos up at the same time, you can listen to the audio from Peter's video and watch the press conference on our channel at the same time there, just so that you can hear it a little bit better. You can also enable the transcripts as well if you're having trouble with that. But yeah, if you want the full press conference, it's there available to you. And like we said, obviously, Chris talking about a theme that's been developing for Kaulig all year, talking about how their cars haven't been up to speed with where we expected them to be. But obviously, this was a great opportunity for them with both SVG and AJ Allmendinger. And to his credit, Josh Williams up there as well with a 7th place run. He had a very strong day in that third Kaulig car. And, just obviously, like I said, it hasn't been the start to the year that they wanted, but Chris is very adamant that they are pushing forward, trying to improve their cars and their performance, and saying that, the fact that SVG certainly had a lot of marks on his car, and it's going to be a unique race win Lionel diecast, which you can go pre-order now as well. That's a sign that the fact that SVG had to drive that car so hard is a sign that those cars are not where they need to be just yet. So, Brandon, in light of all of that, does that make his win more impressive to you, given that he had to overcome a lot driving back up through the field to win this race?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and more than just the race win diecast there from Lionel, that was the way you wanted to get it done. And it kind of in the same way you felt for Joseph Newgarden in this year's Indy 500, in a much smaller way, of course. But last year where, it kind of came off a rule where they don't allow you to do that sort of thing anymore, swerving in towards the pit lane and out. Being able to win it this year, hard-nosed, getting a win that's free from red flag, yellow flag scenarios, kind of in a smaller way. SVG getting a Chicago street course win last year in the Cup Series on his debut was very impressive, but he spent a lot of time up in the front and just outlasted the competition, had a couple of challengers, and actually from the Kaulig Racing stable there. So kind of ironic as we come this year to Portland, but getting beat up, banged, and has to make his way through the field again, and then comes up there for the win. That's the way you do it, and that's the way he has to enjoy doing it. And the Portland circuit kind of reminds me of maybe something that he's familiar with there with supercars. Kind of makes me feel like a Phillip Island kind of thing, where it's long sweeping turns, a little more flat around the way, and so possibly that might be to his advantage to be somewhat more of like a supercar kind of circuit. But I'm excited about his answer to your question of where he feels he might have a better chance with the oval. It's just give me one that turns left, and we'll see what we can do.
Speaking of the air, Ben, from the press conference, the AC just kicked on in the room I'm staying in, so hopefully the feedback isn't too bad if you can hear it at all there. But
you've got good compression. You're good.
Yeah, sounds good. Also, want to say hi to Swastis. Sorry, I'm sure I'm butchering that, but hello to you in the chat room, and Adam as well. Incredible coverage from Portland. We appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, obviously, we all knew that that was one of the talking points coming into this season, was between SVG and AJ, could Kaulig sweep the road course races this year with how strong each of those drivers is on the road courses. And obviously, SVG was up there in the mix at COTA, but came up short to Kyle Larson. And even though he finished second on track, got a penalty that I still think was far too harsh for cutting the course, sending him back 30 seconds to basically be the last car in the lead lap. But had another opportunity this weekend, took it. He's in the playoffs. We'll see if AJ can maybe lock his spot in this weekend at Sonoma, or if SVG can go back-to-back and try to ride that momentum for himself. But absolutely, I think, the fact that he did have so much to overcome, obviously, I'm sure he would have preferred if it could have just been a Sunday drive or a Saturday drive in this case, I guess, just up from the front row and taking the win without too much to deal with. I'm sure that would have been a less stressful afternoon for him, but he got the job done nonetheless. And I think there's merit to both of those possible outcomes. It shows his racecraft and the fact that I think he has gotten used to the argy-bargy, if you will, of NASCAR National Series racing. The fact that he was able to come back up through the field and take the win regardless of everything that kept getting thrown in his path. He overshot turn 12, ran off course at one point during the race. He had his right front bumper caved in a little bit, causing a tire rub. He was going to win stage one, and I still don't really understand why Kaulig pulled him into the pits, because he did give up a stage win and 10 stage points and a playoff point there, but ultimately maybe it worked out better for his race strategy because he came through and won the race regardless, and that's the ultimate goal. So I suppose you can't question that too much, but it was not a simple, straightforward day, but he won the race nonetheless, and more power to him.
Yeah, and he's still smiling. That's what gets me. He still has that fish out of water, so to speak, appearance, at least on the media side. Although there are some drivers we've seen in the past, like Joey Logano, they can be mad and still be smiling. Maybe that's not all there is to it. But like I've said in weeks past, I've been kind of waiting for him to break into America, but it seems to just be who he is.
Yeah, and to your point, Brandon, as well, I want to emphasize, and again, you can watch the full thing for yourselves on our channel, but the very first thing he said in the press conference was, apologies to Sam Mayer and the one team getting into them on the start. He's just the nicest possible guy, and I can tell you now from experience, actually, getting a chance to ask him a question and see him in person this weekend. He's the same in front of the cameras as he is behind. Just totally down to earth, and
it's awesome.
Very nice guy. I think even the colleague pit crew on the radio were mentioning that at the start of this season, and it certainly showed this weekend again. Very apologetic to Mayer, and unfortunately, because again, Mayer was able to work his way back up through the field as well. Don't remember quite off the top of my head where he ended up. I know he had a flat tire that sent him all the way back to 28th. So really an unfortunate turn of events for him. But again, he just won his first Xfinity race, just got locked into the playoffs, and the very first thing on his mind was apologies for getting into a guy on lap one and compromising his afternoon from there. So, all credit to SVG once again. And like I said, another opportunity coming up this weekend at Sonoma. So we'll see what he can do with that in the meantime.
It's good to see a driver that's got a load of talent, gifted, but also is a gentleman as well. That's good to see. Doesn't happen too often, does it?
All right. Well, let's move on now to the second place finisher. A driver that looked like he might be in position to win the race. Was really just a few laps to go, but SVG made the pass on the late race restart to get the win from Justin Allgaier. Of course, he's been in the news a lot this last week, filling in for Kyle Larson at the Coca-Cola 600. We still don't know here at 4:13 p.m. Pacific time, unless news is broken since we've gone on the air and I missed it, whether or not he's going to get a waiver for the playoffs. But that's a story for another day. In the meantime, here's Allgaier on his second place finish. And in light of that question Joe asked him about, could a return to the Cup Series potentially be in his long-term future?
Justin Allgaier, great race today. Can you tell us, though, how disappointed it is, especially Shane van Gisbergen? Was there some contact out there, and do you feel that was fair or a little dirty?
No, it's just one of those days. Had such a fantastic Grand Prix at Coach Camaro all day. Did all the right things, just the race restarts there. We were so free taking off, and every restart we were freer and freer and just made it harder and harder. And I didn't do myself any favors once he was able to get by me. I tried really hard to catch back up to him and probably just made the tires even matter. But, proud of the effort. This 7 team is unbelievable. They're truly incredible. To do what they did on pit stops today, the timing of the pit stops, just the whole day was really good for our team. Just I didn't do a good job at the end there. I didn't execute. And obviously SVG is an incredible road racer and made me pay for it today. So, I'm going to go to work. We'll go back to Sonoma next week and go out there and try to do one spot better and see what we can do.
Now, a lot of folks have been praising your efforts with the Coca-Cola 600 last weekend, just talking very highly about your driving. Is that something where you feel like it's just sort of like rejuvenating everything with the next few races for you, and especially getting people, again, talk about maybe you in the Cup Series?
It was a great honor to go drive the 5 car. They that whole team and the 5 team was truly incredible, and everybody at Hendrick Cars and Hendrick Motorsports and just all the partners on the car were awesome. As a fan, I wanted to see Kyle do the double, right? Like, that was my ultimate goal. And when I realized that wasn't going to be the case, my job was to go do the best job I could. And we did that. Obviously, it was a good finish for us, but it was a cool experience. I'll take away a really cool experience. Whether that translates to anything or not ever, I don't know. But I'm having a lot of fun where I'm at right here. And this 7 team is really special, too.
Good to see you again, and we'll see you at Sonoma.
Sounds good. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
All right, that's Justin Allgaier after his second place finish at Portland, coming up just short in the battle with SVG. Brandon, does Justin Allgaier deserve more credit for his road course racing abilities? He's won at Road America before, nearly beat one of the best road course racers in the world to win at Portland this weekend.
I think he does. He's a consistent performer when it comes to the road courses. He's the bridesmaid 2 years in a row there, actually, at the Portland Raceway. And then you look back at some of his other accomplishments. I look back at 2018 and see where he won Mid-Ohio and Road America in the same year. 5th place at the Indy Road Course just last season. And I mean, yeah, he's always got a good shot there. The Roval 2 years ago finished 5th. Yeah, plenty of good finishes on road courses to justify that he needs that recognition, because he's always in the talks. If he's not there, he's always in the talks, and at least the top 5, top 10. You got to take him out for him not to run well at a road course.
Well, I want to follow up on a question that Joe asked, and probably if Allgaier had won the race, I would have asked this to him in the media center myself. But obviously we think of him as an Xfinity lifer. He's been with that junior motorsports team for the better part of a decade now, and obviously had a lot of success and done pretty much everything except win a championship. So, in light of what you just heard Justin say, in light of his performance last week and what we've been talking about on this show the last couple of weeks now, if he were to get that championship, do you think he should give the Cup Series another chance if he can find the right opportunity, or is he better suited continuing to make a career rather, out of racing on Saturdays at this point?
Personally, I think he's better off sticking with what he's already preached before. He's the Saturday star, and I think he fits that role perfectly. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest if he rode out into the sunset in the Xfinity Series, preferably with a championship. But if it doesn't come, that's not going to take away from his career already. But if he wanted to do something crazy and the wife and kids were okay with it, I mean, if he won an Xfinity Series championship this year and Rick Hendricks said, you know what, next year I'm going to put you in a Cup car, and maybe not a full-time schedule, but just a part-time rodeo, and you're going to give it everything you've got. This is going to be your farewell year, or, whatever he wants to do down the road. If there's some sort of farewell shot, maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, I don't know how much longer his career is going to go, but that would be cool to see him have some sort of extended stay in the Cup Series in his final year, or, some sort of a send-off where he can just give it everything he's got, because it's going to be his last year. That would be neat.
Yeah, well, and again, I kind of felt this way when AJ Allmendinger, who we'll get to here in just a moment, made his return to calling full-time in the Cup Series last year. I was a little disappointed, to be honest with you, because I thought to myself, especially last year with 8 road street courses on the schedule, I just felt like that was a tailor-made opportunity for him to build on his momentum from the last couple of years and go win an Xfinity title. But, he ended up coming back to the Cup Series, and I know they won a race at the Roval late in the year, but I think on the whole, probably not the greatest of seasons for him, and certainly didn't have the results that I think he would have had he stayed in Xfinity. And again, it's not a knock on his talent, or saying that he is an Xfinity driver because that's only as far as his talent can take him. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think that's the case for Justin Allgaier. If Allgaier were to do that, I'd want it to be a situation where he's going to Hendrick Motorsports, or maybe there's a shock Carl Edwards type of retirement at some other team, and he gets a chance to drive for Joe Gibbs, or maybe a reunion with Roger Penske. I know it's been over a decade since he drove their Xfinity car, but you never know. That opportunity might come up, but I would want it to be something like that. I wouldn't want it to be, with all due respect, another H. Scott Motorsports situation, because, he drove in Cup for a couple of years, but really didn't have the opportunity to show what he could do, and that forced him back to Xfinity. And to his credit, he's made a solid home for himself here at Junior Motorsports, and won a lot of races, competed for championships, and I think had a very solid career. So I would be hesitant to leave that. If I'm putting myself in Allgaier's shoes, I wouldn't want to leave that unless I knew, I was getting a Hendrick ride or a top opportunity in Cup for a couple of years. It's probably the only thing that could be tempting enough to leave the current situation in Junior Motorsports.
Let me present this offer to you. If Spire Motorsports continues to build with their technical alliance with Hendrick, would you consider that as an option?
That's a good question. Yeah. Well, again, I guess there's only one guy you got to ask, and it would be
he commits and just gets on board with NASCAR. What would you think? Put Justin Allgaier somewhere?
I think the audio cut out. Were you asking if Michael Andretti commits with Spire? Is that?
I interrupted your response, but I was just saying, like, to add to the spice, if Andretti went, fully committed to that, and got into that pod as well, would that heighten your interest in Justin Allgaier?
It would be tempting if I'm looking at it from the owner's perspective now. Allgaier would certainly be one of the top names on my list, and I think again, what if he adds that to his legacy? He's kind of the one that helps build the Andretti Spire partnership in NASCAR. I mean, we're really taking a lot of liberties here with assumptions in terms of what's going to happen here. I know Michael still wants to get his F1 team up and running. That's his top priority now. But if that doesn't work out, hit roadblock after roadblock, I think Gamebridge connection, there's certainly an opportunity for him in NASCAR if he wants it. So maybe that would be something Allgaier would be interested in as well. But again, as for right here, right now, don't want to distract too much from the weekend he had, because he certainly gave SVG a run for his money. And again, I think proved that he's got a great thing going for him in Xfinity right now, and probably going to take a lot to pull him away from that, for whether it's a cup opportunity or otherwise. And Joe Samaniego saying here, Justin, I think he should consider a top-level team, not a midfield cup team. So there you go. That's kind of the same conclusion that we're drawing here, although Spire, I think, is at the point now. I mean, Carson Hocevar had a great run in the Cup Race at Gateway. I think they might be emerging from midfield Cup team. That might be, something where, you have to weigh your options and maybe take your chances there. But we'll see. Still a lot of pieces to fall into place for the 2025 puzzle and beyond here.
Oh, there's a lot, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll move on now to SVG's teammate at Colleague Racing, AJ Allmendinger. An eventful day for him in the number 16 car. Originally, the Circle wrapped paint scheme became the Celsius wrapped paint scheme. They had to bring the car, but he was intending to race at Sonoma out after he crashed in qualifying, had to go to a backup car, and that set him back from the very beginning. Here's what AJ had to say about his fourth place effort.
AJ Allmendinger, I know a little bit of a disappointing day considering what it started, but overall, where you thought of your race efforts, because you still had the crowd cheering for you every time you went the Festival Corner, Sheldon Chicane.
Yeah, I mean, it was my effort was poor, but I'm really proud of and thankful, more than anything, proud but especially thankful and appreciative of all the men and women at Colleague Racing for just keep pushing and having to get a backup car ready in 2.5 hours. Shane's world class, so it's really good that the team, the organization as a whole, got a win. I won't comment on my effort. It's or my ability, but just thankful for the people I got around me.
Now, of course, you got a great team around you. One of the big things, you got Shane van Gisbergen. Is this the kind of win where for the team this is just, okay, we got that first win, now let's go try to get rally another win to Sonoma, and then does it come a little easier with that momentum?
You'd have to go talk to him. He's in victory lane. For me, it's not. It doesn't make it doesn't make Sonoma all of a sudden better. But Shane's world class. I think he's doing a great job on the ovals, learning, and we know his ability on the road course. So more than anything, it's been a tough year for the organization. So it's just good that they got a win.
AJ, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to you at Sonoma, and we'll see you there.
Thank you. Thanks, AJ.
Thank you.
Right, obviously AJ very disappointed knowing that this was a race that he's won before and an opportunity for him to rebound from maybe not a poor start to the season, but subpar given where we expected Colleague to be, like we were talking about during the SVG segment. So Brandon, on that note, good opportunity for one of the stars of the road courses coming up again this weekend at Sonoma. Can AJ Allmendinger rebound and take a win later this weekend?
He certainly has a chip on his shoulder, knowing that, like you said, that is a place that he was able to win at. But was in the debut race for the Xfinity Series there a couple of years ago, and our debut was in good Portland fashion in the pouring rain, and so it put on for a sludge fest that AJ somehow was able to navigate his way through. Very much different scenario coming into 2024. Very dry, kind of like last year. Finishing fourth, though, I mean, that's a great finish. Come on. For the Xfinity Series for Colleague Racing, that's a great finish. But AJ Allmendinger's not that kind of guy that's okay with fourth. He knows he can win there. He wants to win. And so, I mean, you can't can't bother a racer whenever he's upset about a fourth place finish because he knows what he's capable of. And again, he didn't want to comment on his own performance. He wanted to harp on Colleague Racing and all the men and women there that prepare those cars for him. I'm concerned about with Sonoma is just they had to bring in. He's obviously upset that they had to bring the Sonoma car into Portland, and so my concern for Sonoma is, well, that means that they're scrambling to get that new. I assume they're scrambling to get that new car prepared for wine country. So, may not be exactly what he was anticipating coming into California with, but he's just like Justin Allgaier and SVG. He's got and Cole Custer too. He's got every chance. Also Kligerman, every chance to have a good finish at Sonoma. I mean, there's so many good road ringers in the Xfinity Series. You have to be in these top 3 series now. We talk about that a lot. Well, maybe the top 2 series. You have to be good at road courses, and AJ Allmendinger is very good at road courses. I don't think it matters what kind of car he's in. He's going to do a good job if you don't run him off the road, that is.
Yeah, defending winner Cole Custer ended up with a strong finish as well, coming in home in 6th, and Parker Kligerman, like you mentioned as well, in 8th place. And looking ahead to Sonoma, the defending winner Eric Almirola not entered in the race. Ty Gibbs and John Henry Nemechek will be in the 19 and 20 for Gibbs respectively. So those are your 2 cup invaders or bushwhackers, if you want to call them that. I know that they don't have as much experience as Eric Almirola and Kyle Larson, who were in the race last year. But I think, again, that just gives AJ another opportunity, with, Boris said him a 17 this weekend. I'm hoping that he has a great run. But at this point in Boris's career, great to see him get the opportunity. It's not like Kyle Larson is stepping behind the wheel. That's 17 either. So that's, one less obstacle in his way to potentially get a strong finish, maybe even a win. But then again, you've got the added obstacle, like you mentioned, Brandon, about, where that team is after having to scramble to get that Sonoma converted over to run Portland. And I think the situation was, I saw a tweet. I didn't get to listen to the podcast this week, but apparently Chris Rice said that Colleague brought 6 cars out to Portland and Sonoma, 1 for each of their drivers for each of the tracks, with the intention on using 3 for Portland and 3 for Sonoma. So that's why the 16 didn't have the same, the backup car didn't have the same sponsorship or wrap that the primary did for AJ, because that was supposed to be a Sonoma car. So we'll see what they end up deciding to do, if they decide to repair the Portland car and maybe give that a shot here, since it doesn't have as many miles on it after the Portland race like the intended Sonoma car does. Who knows what's going to happen there? But, regardless, track that AJ has run well at before, but never quite broken through to actually take the win and celebrate in victory lane. So, I'm sure it has to be circled on his calendar more so than even before coming into this weekend, given the disappointment of Portland. But like you mentioned, Brandon, it's hard to complain too much when you come home with a 4th place finish after everything that he went through on Saturday. But I do see both sides of it. I know that some people were commenting after we posted that interview saying, why is he so hard on himself? That's just AJ Allmendinger's personality. He is not satisfied with anything less than a win. Colleague is not satisfied with anything less than a win. Their motto is trophy hunting, for crying out loud. And I think it's absolutely understandable that he would be disappointed to be, set back a little bit before the race even began. It makes it that much more difficult to come through and ultimately achieve your goals. So we'll see. I know he's going to be fired up coming into Sonoma here. So, we'll see. He's on the cup entry list as well. So if it's still something he's looking to do, sweep the weekend. He came very close to Coda a couple of years ago before Ross Chastain had other ideas, so it's a big weekend for him. We'll see what kind of results he can put up. And let's see. Nico Krinkelberg. I wonder if that's a play on Nico Hulkenberg. But good to see you. First, 4th, and 7th is a solid weekend. Chances backing it up at Sonoma, I think, very high. Again, all credit to Josh Williams for coming away with a strong finish. And boy, he's needed some of those with how his season in particular has started. But, SVG and AJ Allmendinger, I don't think they've been too satisfied with their results either. So this gives them a great opportunity, with road courses back-to-back to boost their season, boost their momentum. They did a very good job of that at Portland. I think absolutely they have a very strong chance going into another road course right here at Sonoma. Wouldn't be surprised if either of them is standing in victory lane at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. SVG could be running up there. It's just the difference between Portland and Sonoma is just you got to deal with that elevation and how that handles with the Xfinity Series car. And he's been going through simulators and stuff. He's going to get it down.
Yeah. And JB, a good point as well. SVG will benefit from the 50-minute practice, being it's his first race there, and an extended practice because of the repave at Sonoma. So again, that kind of throws a wild card into the situation for everybody here. Nobody's, well, I shouldn't say that. I guess a few of the Cup drivers have done a tire test there, but virtually nobody has extended experience on this new pavement here at the Sonoma Raceway. So again, I think, like you mentioned, Brandon, with the rain in 2022, I think the more wild card elements you throw at the field, the more it benefits somebody like an SVG or an AJ Allmendinger that has a tremendous road racing background. So we'll see if that plays in their favor here in just a few days.
Yeah.
All right. And one more. Sorry, I thought that was a repeating comment. It's a comment from the same user. SVG did some testing at Sonoma earlier this year, if I remember correctly. I don't remember that off the top of my head, but that certainly could be the case. Wouldn't surprise me there. So
it would have to be for Goodyear, right? If he did that, because
I would think so. Yeah. And Adam says SVG will be one of Will Brown's spotters in the Cup race at Sonoma. I was not aware of that. So thank you, Adam, for letting us know.
Cool.
All right. Well, before we move on here, one other driver I want to talk about, a driver that I think, we were all very disappointed, didn't even get the opportunity to show what he could do this weekend. That is Frankie Muniz. Of course, Joe talked to him on Thursday night at a local Ford dealership. He said he was so excited about this opportunity to be back in the Xfinity Series, but he noted on more than one occasion that he was not locked into the race. He had to go qualify in his 35. Joey Gase Motorsports team did not have a lot of owner's points, and unfortunately, he didn't even get the chance to lay down a qualifying lap because I think it might have been on the opening lap, maybe only 2 laps into his practice session, the engine let go. He broke an oil line, and unfortunately, that was the end of his day right there before it could really even begin. And I think that was really the biggest piece of disappointment for him, the fact that he couldn't even have the opportunity, rather, to qualify his way in. Really, really frustrating afternoon for Frankie Muniz. But Brandon, in light of that, obviously we've been following him a lot these last year and a half or so on the Encore show. What do you think is next for him after this engine failure and DNQ at Portland? Do you think we'll see him back in the 35, or do you think he'll go back to ARCA, run some more races with Rhett Jones? What do you think he should do now that he's kind of at this crossroads here after a disappointing weekend?
I would say you go back to Rhett Jones and go back into ARCA. I don't know if Xfinity is the right thing right now. I think if you have the opportunity still, you need to be grinding it out in ARCA. But I'm not calling the shots, but I would suggest that would probably be the way to go, is to continue building an ARCA. And if you can start getting some better results there, then weigh your options and see what else you can do. But even if that means moving away from the Ford ladder, I don't know what his options look like out there, but Ford Performance has been very kind to him. So I know that's got to be your first choice, but it'd be nice to see this ride out as long as he can get the funding for it.
Yeah, well, and again, that was another point that he brought up when Joe talked to him, was, hinting at a potential full-time effort. He wants to be full-time in 2025. He didn't mention a series, but, again, obviously he ran full-time ARCA last year. I think if I were in his shoes, I would say that would probably be the more fun option, the opportunity of that would, allow you to compete for top fives, perhaps even wins if the situation's right. And again, I don't know how much backing he's got from Ford. Obviously, he's a Ford partner. Joey Gase Motorsports, not necessarily one of the top teams, again, with all due respect to them, that you think of in the Xfinity Series. So it's going to be interesting to see what his future holds. But I find it hard to believe. And I know he was very upset, very frustrated. He mentioned in his Fox Sports interview that his son in particular was devastated that his dad didn't give a chance to run this race. But I can't imagine he goes from looking forward to running full time next year potentially to, reevaluating your entire career in the span of just 48 hours. So we'll see how he takes his next couple of days, reevaluates his situation, and hopefully he can bounce back and we'll see him again, whether it's in Xfinity or ARCA, back in the Rhett Jones car later this year, because that would be great to see. All right, a couple more comments before we move on here. Hopefully my internet is all right. I'm getting that notice again, but hopefully you all can still hear me. Will Brown and Cam Waters racing this week. Interesting to see how they go. Yes, we'll have full coverage of that on Grid Live wrap-up as they cover the Cup Series this weekend. Of course, I'll be out there with Brock Beard and LastCar.info, so stay tuned for that coverage as well. Rob Brown, SVG really should have 2 wins today. Can't argue there based on what happened in COTA. And Nico back here, yeah, tough choice. Run with an average bottom Xfinity team or run with a more competitive ARCA team. There's certainly more eyes on the Xfinity Series, but again, if I were in his position just coming over to stock car racing here over the last couple of years, I would rather be in a situation that allows me to be more competitive running up front. And I think that would be more fun for him at this point in his career as he's, in his mid to late 30s now. He's not obviously a rookie by, experience, but not in terms of age here. I know that he's only got a few years really where he can try to make this dream a reality. In all likelihood, I would say probably go run ARCA. I think that's the best possible situation for him at this point in his career, realistically speaking.
Yeah, I agree with that tough choice. Do you want the stats or do you want the scouts? And also you got to play the age into factor, not a spring chicken. You got to decide what's going to be good for the long run.
All right, we move on now to the ARCA Menards Series West, running on Friday, the day before the Xfinity Series race. And it was an East Series regular, William Sawalich, who comes over to run a few West Series races a year with that 18 Joe Gibbs Racing team. Really a shocking result when you think about it. The Gibbs car finished first. The only Xfinity driver in the field finished second with Brandon Jones. Who would have expected that in the ARCA Menards Series West? But, of course, in all seriousness, we expected Sawalich to be a contender. Brandon Jones, solid run for him in the Cook car of number 42. Isabella Robusto in third on her road course debut in the ARCA Menards Series platform. Great run for her. Let's hear from what William Sawalich had to say on the pass that he made for the win on Brandon Jones.
It kind of felt like it was, you and Brandon Jones all day battling for the lead. You passed him right before the halfway point there. Talk about that pass that you had and what you saw and how you were able to pretty much do that.
Yeah, I knew we were coming to the halfway point, so it would be a guaranteed caution. But I honestly didn't think I was going to make a corner, so I just had to try something to get the lead. And it worked, and he was able to stay behind us, and we agreed as well.
And the full press conference from Sawalich is also on the Grid YouTube channel, so you can go check that out a little bit later after our stream here tonight. Here's what Isabella Robusto had to say on her third place finish. This is the full interview that Joe had with the driver number 55 Toyota after the race.
Joe, here's Dan with Isabella Robusto. Great job, third place finish. Can you tell us about that race today?
It was pretty good. Difficult start, just trying to figure out the differences for these big, heavy stock cars on the road courses. But the Venerini guys gave me a really fast Yahoo Toyota Camry today, and was able to come from 13th to 3rd there at the end. So kind of spent the first half of the race just learning the track, the car, just kind of getting more comfortable in it. And then after that halfway caution, kind of just started working my way forward. And ended with a P3. I think I could have been probably second if I made a couple less mistakes on that last little stretch. But overall, feel really good about it and feel good about going to Sonoma next week.
Now, of course, Sonoma, a lot of hills, a lot of elevation changes. Is that something where it's just hitting the simulators and just trying to get prepared, or does this carry on some notes of how the car handled for maybe next weekend?
Oh, I feel like coming here, just learning the car and how it works on a road course is going to be a huge help. I've been to Sonoma before and raced in different cars, but I think seeing the racetrack before I go is definitely going to be a gain for when we go to Sonoma. Here I was kind of just jumping into the deep end, figuring out the track and the car at the same time to start. So I think I'll be at an advantage for when we get to Sonoma.
And of course, you're originally from South Carolina, done a lot late model racing. What are your thoughts about racing, especially ARCA West, Portland? It's been one of those things where we see some drivers come out. A lot of folks were excited to hear that you were coming out. What was your thought overall of the weekend?
I thought it was great. I think there was a lot of competition there. I had to work pretty hard to make it through the field, especially when I got kind of in the top 10. So I feel good about Sonoma. I think there'll be some really good racing there, especially with the little more technical parts where everyone can kind of stay bunched up and race.
So we know you got Sonoma. You've had some great runs in Nashville, a bunch of races already this year. Is there some other tracks you're looking at this year where you got a circle like this is the one I really feel good about a potential win?
I'm feeling really good about the 2 Irwindale races. I feel like Nashville was a big help with that, kind of figuring out, again, this car on a short track and how that works. So on the sim, I feel really good about Irwindale. It's pretty similar to some of the racetracks that I run in the late model. So I think overall that one's definitely circled, and Kansas getting onto a big, not super speedway, but a bigger track compared to what I'm used to, and just kind of trying to figure out the aero and how the aero works is going to be one that I've got circled.
Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so you heard it right there. Isabella Robusto will be back at Sonoma this week, and she mentioned the Irwindale doubleheader coming up as well, so we'll see her back in the West Series, in the not too distant future with these next few races here. So again, very strong run for her. I know she has some GR Cup experience with Toyota, so not too surprising for those that follow her over there, but again, a very strong run for her, and great to see her running so competitively this early in her ARCA career.
It is, and it's neat to see that experience of a driver getting to that, kind of being that level at the first time and going to all these different tracks for the first time. And it's cool to see that reaction to those kinds of questions of just, hey, I'm going to Sonoma next weekend, and like I'm gonna learn this for the first time. That's just cool to see that happen between these different newer drivers.
Yeah, no doubt. And I've got to give a shout out as always, Dale Corley. Great to see him still out there in his early 60s running this series and running so competitively on these road courses here. And he will be back at Sonoma as well. I actually ran into him on Friday because I noticed that he was running the 4-car this weekend, which he normally runs in the main ARCA series because Christian Rose's AM Racing runs the 32. So I asked what went into that number change because he was on the 32 on the entry list this week, and he mentioned something about a hauler driver not showing up or plans changing at the last minute. They had to scramble to bring the 4 out, but he expects to be back in the 32 this weekend at Sonoma. So we wish Dale all the best, and great to see him back out there once again. Great to see Marco Andretti out there as well with a 7th-place run, just 1 week removed from the Indianapolis 500. How do you like that? You run the Indy 500 on a Sunday, and you come out to Portland to run an ARCA West race on Friday. Marco Andretti certainly keeping busy here in 2024.
Yeah, all part of the job for Marco. That's just the family business on Sunday, then gets out to go do what he kind of wants to do with the ARCA West on out in Portland. But yeah, Dale Quarterly, that's pretty cool, finishing 6th. And I know you've affectionately have him circled on your calendar whenever he's going out to an event. And we think a lot about him here on Encore and where he's finishing and how he's doing with his team.
Yeah, try not to let my bias show through too much here, but Dale was at the first, I guess now ARCA East, K&N East race back then, event that I went to at New Jersey Motorsports Park, and unfortunately didn't have such a great day then, but Dale's always been somebody whose story fascinates me and everything that he's been through on motorcycles and here in NASCAR and now ARCA as well, and great to see him still back out there, like I said, at this point in his career, still running so competitively. It's great to see. And just looking down the rest of the results here, disappointing day for Eric Johnson Jr., disappointing for Tanner Reif as well. He had some hood issues and unfortunately had to retire from the race with some damage and mechanical problems that came from that. Dave Smith, I want to give that team a shout out. They were one of the 2 did not start entries with Tony Huffman down there getting 24th place points. Smith getting 23rd place points as well. Ran into them as the race had just started because I was going out to the garage to see if knew that those 2 cars hadn't taken the green, wanted to see what the story was there, and just got a quick word with him. He said the clutch wouldn't go, and that prevented him from starting the race. And their team was particularly very disappointed that they were unable to get the car out there for him so that he could start the event. So an unfortunate deal for him. Hopefully we'll see that team back, if not at Sonoma this week, a little bit later on in the season. And there's the complete rundown from the West Series. Again, the full press conference with Sawalich is also on the YouTube channel, so you can go check that out as well. And in the meantime, we move on now. The Truck Series was in action this weekend as well. They were at Gateway, and again, very familiar sight here this season. Corey Heim taking the win for Tricon Garage. Christian Eckes finishing in 2nd. Nick Sanchez in P3. these are also the top three in points. Eckes has the edge over Heim, and then Sanchez in third in the point standings. Of course, if Heim hadn't been disqualified from the last race, he would probably have enough points to be in the points lead over there as well. So, Brandon, in light of that, obviously with how the Truck Series schedule is paced, we're getting closer to the start of the playoffs here already. These were the top three this weekend. Those are your top three in points. Can we say a new big three is forming in the Truck Series in 2024?
Kinda. Based on this last weekend's results, I'd say yes, but really it's the big one, and that one is Corey Heim. He's further solidifying to me that he is the championship favorite, the one to beat, like his to lose after this one at World Wide Technology Raceway. I mean, you look at the other two, yes, they have 2 wins on the season. Nick Sanchez with his Daytona win at the start, and then Charlotte last weekend. You look at Christian Eckes, and he got it done at Bristol and Martinsville. But you look at, on the other hand, you look at Corey Heim, and he spots up the board. He won here, there, everywhere, green eggs and ham, all of it. And so Corey Heim, he's looking at that 23-11 third spot opening up next year too. And I've got my eyes on him for that 67 or who or what or whatever they decide that third car charter to be. That comes out of the Stewart-Haas deal. But yeah, Corey Heim is definitely impressive. Nick Sanchez and Eckes are also impressive. Almost said equally. They're not equally impressive by my standards just yet.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Obviously, Eckes and Sanchez have, been to victory lane, look like they could be championship contenders. And given how last year's race at Phoenix played out, you get to the championship 4 in this series, I think you have a fighting chance no matter who you are. Ty Majeski actually as well finished 4th. I believe he is 4th in points, so it goes even a little bit further than that. Obviously, Majeski's had some strong runs, still looking for that victory this year. But, this could be a preview of your championship 4, very much so, I think. We'll see, obviously, a lot of racing still to play out. Lane Riggs, great to see him having another strong run again. I know that the season did not start the way that we expected it to for him, but he had a strong run in the top 5. Also want to give a shout out to a couple of drivers making their debuts. Andres Perez, who you usually see in the ARCA Menards Series, and Luke Fenhouse, who you've also seen on that platform as well, 9th and 10th in their respective debuts. So good runs for them. And of course, like I said, and like you said, Brandon, as well, I think Corey Heim just further solidifying that he is the championship favorite for the Truck Series. But again, with this format and with what we saw last year, best you can do is pretty much get to Phoenix, I think, and then just hope that you hit the setup right and can stay out of trouble, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think he also just has the raw talent to back it up once he gets to Phoenix, though. I think there's not much of a doubt that he'll be one of the 4 drivers in Avondale, but I think he's got the raw talent to back it up once we get there, to even pass all the quote-unquote luck you have to get through to win the championship these days. But yeah, what about Luke Fenhouse there in a Thor Sport truck finishing P10, making that equipment work for him, and of course Andres Perez de Lara doing well there for Spire in the All-Star truck, 9th. And yeah, I'm glad about Lane Riggs as well. Ford having a good time there at World Wide Technology Raceway in the Truck Series.
Brandon, you mentioned 2311. 67 car, we've seen that. Obviously, the 50 this year with the Mobile 1 anniversary. The 67 made sense because they have the 2-3, they have the 4-5. That's the next number in the sequence. What would you think of the 01? Bringing that back. You keep the sequence going, but you're going the other way. And we haven't seen too many, in the Cup Series at least, we haven't seen too many of those O numbers in recent years. Do you think that would be something that you'd like to see out on the track?
I'll have to think about it, because that's the first I've ever heard of that. I would like to see a concept first, proof of concept, please. From any trading paints painter, proof of concept. Let's get this done. An 01 2311 car, because I like to visualize it before I go with it. But yeah, that would be nice. Whatever they decide, though, it'll be something that we weren't expecting, because that's just how Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan roll. They'll give you something that you weren't expecting.
Well, MB2 and Bobby Ginn seem to make it work pretty well with that Army car with Joe Nemechek and Mark Martin back in the day. So, and Regan Smith as well. Yeah. Probably should have won that Talladega race back when that car was under the DEI banner at the time. But I know speaking of Sonoma coming up this weekend, Brock Beard, he will still tell you to this day he believes Regan Smith was the winner that day, and I'm sure a lot of other fans feel the same way about that.
Well, the 01, I also think of Chip Ganassi and Jason Leffler in the singular wireless. Yeah,
another good example there.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's catch up on the chat a little bit before we move on. Rod Brown, Will Brown is a serious talent. Looking forward to seeing him out at Sonoma this weekend along with Cam Waters. So again, we'll see if one of them can pull off what SVG did last year. Probably setting the bar a little bit high there, if we're being honest with ourselves. But you never know. The supercars drivers certainly have a lot of talent. And would not surprise me at all if they can run in the top 10 and be a little bit competitive this weekend in those extra open entries. So we'll keep our eye on them. And Mintox Ace, good to see you here in the chat. If SVG had a good car on the weekend, they wouldn't have seen him all weekend. He had to wring the neck of that car to get the win. I'm not sure anyone else would have been able to do that. Well, and again, you can go watch the press conference. Chris Rice made it very clear that their cars are not where they want them to be right now. And again, like we talked about at the top of the show, I think that just makes what SVG did even more impressive. Knowing that it hasn't been the start to the year that Kaulig would have wanted it to be. The fact that SVG had so much to overcome, both before the race and during the race, getting shuffled back a couple of times and still being able to win, testament to his talent and something that I think expected coming into this year, that he would be the solid favorite in all the road course races for sure. All right, one more race to recap this weekend, and maybe do a little bit of an open segment here. We'll see where the conversation goes. A lot of discourse surrounding Detroit after the IndyCar race yesterday, but Indy NXT was there as well. Congratulations to Louis Foster on taking a win. Unfortunate deal for Nolan Siegel. The hits just keep coming. He was delayed in getting out of the pits to even start the race. That set him back from the start. You see him down there in 18th place. Really unfortunate deal for him, coming off of the disappointment of not being able to qualify for the Indy 500, but still expect him to be one of the favorites for the championship this year in Indy NXT. Give a shout out to Miles Rowe as well, who started all the way down in 19th on the grid, worked his way up to P4, just missing out on the podium. Great result for him as he continues his rookie season here in Indy NXT. But on that note, Brandon, obviously new Detroit layout the last couple of years. I think a lot of drivers were saying after this weekend that they missed the Belle Isle circuit. What did you make of not just Indy NXT, but the IndyCar Series race this weekend? And do you echo those sentiments that you wish we had never left the streets of Belle Isle for this new downtown Detroit circuit?
It was embarrassing coming into the restarts time and time again. I'm just going to get the elephant in the room out there. Going into turn one, I'm just baffled at the TV for the 7 or 8 cautions we had, and IndyCar race, the stewards were handing out penalties like they were hotcakes. I mean, probably had like 10 or 11 penalties for different drivers. I mean, a lot of them were warranted, but still, it was just like, you get one, you all get one. But going back to the Detroit street circuit, it needed to be done eventually. Is it producing what we wanted it to do? Not yet. Is it going to? I don't know, but I think we need to stay here for a little bit. Hold your horses. I did like Belle Isle. It had a good run, had a long run, but I think we'll get to that in a minute though. But no, it was kind of a disappointing weekend. I think I enjoyed last year's race there back on the Detroit streets more than this time for sure. Given that we actually had some more green flag conditions, and also the amount of time that they kept the yellow out during certain periods of the race, it had James Hinchcliffe just infuriated on the air. He was just like, "This is not good. Why are we still under yellow? We're wasting precious time here." Because also they were dealing with the rain coming in the middle of it, and a bunch of teams taking the wets, and then all of a sudden, just the tire swap ups. Then they should have had greens, and it was a mess.
Yeah, that in particular is a great point. Because it really kind of, I don't want to sound like, when I use the term race manipulation, I'm not saying that it's rigged or scripted in favor of certain drivers or anything. I want to make that very clear, but it did really advantage the drivers that stayed out and did not put the wets on, because it was really just a quick shower that moved through, kind of sprayed the track. And then, the fact that we never went red or anything, the caution was cleaned up very quickly. We saw drivers, still out on the track, putting heat in the track, trying to get heat in their tires. The track dried up very quickly. And, really disadvantaged the drivers that had gone onto the wets. So that was unfortunate. And, obviously the timing of the cautions on the restarts, really there was a period there where we just could not get going. And I think, people were saying on social media, for once, thank goodness this race was on USA and not big NBC, because it, again, probably would not have been such a great look if some of the casual Indy 500 only fans had decided to give this one a try on big NBC as well. And seeing this, I think that despite what somebody from Penske Entertainment said about getting an entertaining show here, I don't think it was the greatest look for the series either. So, again, like you mentioned, Brandon, I know that it's not as simple as snapping your fingers and bringing us back to Belle Isle and having the winner jump in the fountain and all those great memories that we have from that circuit. But I think a lot of drivers certainly feeling sentimental after this weekend with how the weekend here in 2024 played out.
Yeah, I would like to see the streets of Detroit play out, though. There's got to be some give it time behind it. I think this might still be a part of for a lot of the drivers, this is a new track. So kind of the new track woes, getting it worn in for this generation of IndyCar. There are the pros and cons, though. Detroit, Belle Isle, I've heard that for it, it's on that island, it's the park. So there's not really a place where anyone can just come up without a ticket and watch what's going on. At least you have that in the Detroit streets. You've got these areas kind of like the Chicago street circuit where, people that are just passing by there's certain areas where they can see the action on track for free and see Indy cars for free, or hear them at least, coming down a street where they hang out all the time. A disadvantage so far I'm seeing with the streets of Detroit is that it's all these 90-degree right hand turns. It's all very cookie cutter, same turns each time. And at least Detroit Grand Prix of Belle Isle had some good sweeping radiuses. I don't know how you say it, just had at least some circle turns. Man, I'm bad at this. Can you tell I did
the angles,
geometry?
Yeah.
Had some good sweeping angles instead of just the 90-degree stuff here and there, which I get it. That's how the streets go there. But if there was just a way to add a little more curvature, I guess, to the circuit, it might produce a little better product too.
All right, we'll leave it there. No shortage of things to talk about from IndyCar this week. And again, thank you so much for tuning in. I know it was a busy week for us here at Grid Network. The wrap-up show was a little bit different yesterday in light of how busy Joe was. So thank you for tuning in to that debrief edition of Wrap-Up. Thank you for tuning in to us here on Grid Encore tonight. And again, like I mentioned at the top of the show, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms, X/Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, LinkedIn, Threads. Most importantly, subscribe to us here on YouTube. Thank you again for all the support over the last couple of days here in particular. If you really like what you saw tonight, you can take a few minutes after the show to consider joining our Patreon. Join Colin, Michelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Help make weekends like this a little bit more common at the Grid Network. Help get us to the track on a more regular basis. As you can see, we have a goal of $500 per month to help us do just that, and that will only expand our coverage for you, the viewers. You can also become a member of the Grid Network YouTube channel. Now that we're above 1,000 subscribers as well. Or if you'd rather make a one-time donation instead, you can visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. You can buy a coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Now on Wednesday, don't miss Grid Tonight with Kobe Lambeth, Josh Birch, and Matt White. Women in Motorsports should be back this week as well. Stay tuned for more coverage coming up this weekend from the Grid Network. And Brandon, you can tell how tired I am. I skipped right over our one shining moments. So do you have any final thoughts for us tonight? And if you don't, you can just roll right into that. What is your one shining moment from this weekend at Portland and Detroit and Gateway?
Yeah. Overall, for for World Wide Technology Raceway, just for a successful race weekend. The stands look pretty filled, and I couldn't find any hard evidence on this, but can you remember like 2022? Were you affected by rain at all for the Cup date?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I know that we got the Cup race in. We had the weather delay from the Truck Series, obviously, but it was nice to get the Cup race in without a weather delay after what happened last year with lightning delay for sure.
Yeah, overall, just getting them to have a good weekend. They needed that, and I think it looked pretty successful all around for the weekend for trucks and for Cup. And of course, Portland was great. I got to give a shout out to Josh Williams, I guess, for finishing 7th at Portland International. He needs some good finishes, and take him where you'll get them. That's a good place to get one. And for an overall good colleague weekend, you should find another one here next weekend at Sonoma if he keeps that momentum going. And I'll leave this one to you now. What's your shining moment?
Well, Joe took the first one of mine at Jones.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this actually in our post-race wrap-up that we did of the track. Ed Jones was one of the only cars that had fewer owner's points than Frankie Muniz, so he had no choice. He had to go qualify on speed, and he did much more than that, coming away with a top 5 finish. Great to see Ed back racing in the Xfinity Series. Hopefully this leads to some more opportunities for him, but a very strong run for him. I also want to give a call to Josh Balicki. I know that 12th place, is still a solid result, but really not indicative of how he ran. He ran up in the top 5, even the top 3 for a lot of this race and that opportunity with Joe Gibbs. And, great to see him get a chance to run for a top team like that. And hopefully we get to see more of that later this year. So I think he certainly proved that when you give some of these drivers the opportunity like that to get behind the wheel for a top team, they'll go and make the most of it. Unfortunately, he got shuffled back into chaos at the end of the race and only salvaged P12 out of it, but still a very strong run for him. Nonetheless, that is my one shining moment. Also, obviously, Joe is here in the chat with us. Thank you, Joe, for allowing me to come out to Portland once again with you for the 3rd year in a row, and we'll see how the schedules align next year. Obviously, it's a big year for the media rights, and I've got a feeling that's going to shake up the schedules a little bit, but always appreciate coming back out to Portland. And appreciate the opportunity I'm going to have this weekend with lastcar.info as well. So great weekend for all of us here at Grid. Thank you all for watching tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And Brandon, any more final thoughts? I might notice we get ready for more road course racing this weekend.
Yeah, ready for one of the original road courses on the calendar, Sonoma Raceway. Always a great weekend. And from Adam Stern, Tylenol is Kroger Racing's co-primary partner for Sonoma this weekend on Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s car. Looks a lot like Cal Naughton Jr. this weekend. And with the Tylenol on there and the recent events, I just have a weird feeling that that's going to turn into a joke. I don't know where it comes into play, but Tylenol for Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I feel like it's going to be a joke at some point. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I don't know. With based on how the All-Star race went, maybe Kyle Busch is going to need some Tylenol after the race. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Somebody can write a joke better than I can on the fly, I'm sure, and send a tweet out. Maybe they'll get some traction there. But yeah, looking forward to Sonoma again. It's been a great experience the last 2 years, and like I said, talking about colleague this weekend, I think we might be talking about them again between both SVG and AJ Allmendinger's skill set on the road courses. We'll see what they can do and back that up. And to your point as well, on your one shining moment, Josh Williams again. Great run for him. All 3 colleague cars in the top 7 in Portland.
Yeah. Enjoy your time in Sonoma, man. Enjoy it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the support. We will see you next week here. Tune in on Tuesday. I'm going to be flying back from the West Coast on Monday evening on a red eye. So you're going to have to wait a little bit longer for the Encore show, but you can follow us, me and Brock Beard at Last Car and Brock, all weekend at Sonoma. We'll have some great coverage for you. So we'll see you out there. And we'll see you next time right here on Grid Encore.